Before we dive in, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. They called him the waiter because he knew how to stand still. Hands loose. Eyes steady. A man who made silence feel like a room you couldn't leave. When Paul Ricca stepped off the train into Chicago, the streets were wet with last night's rain and the L groaned like an old animal overhead. He didn't look tough. He looked tidy, pressed jacket, clean shoes, a face that kept its secrets. He found work near kitchens and back rooms, where heat, smoke, and whispers mixed. He served, he watched, he listened. He learned which men tipped and which men lied, which doors stayed locked and which opened if you spoke softly enough. He ate simple food. He drank coffee that went cold while he thought. He took notes in his head and lost none of them. When someone tried to impress him, he smiled with only his eyes. He liked order, not noise. Rules, not scenes. By the time the loud ones realized, they were already moving to his rhythm, paying his prices, arriving when his clock said so. He never called it power. He called it good habits. And habits, once set, are hard to break until someone decides to test them. He moved from dish rooms to doorways, from doorways to tables where men spoke in half sentences. He never rushed the ladder, he dusted each rung before climbing. The first jobs were small, messages run at odd hours, a cash bag delivered without a wrinkle, a reminder given with a gentle tone that somehow stayed in a man's head like a bell. He kept the books for a card room in the back of a grocery, the numbers balanced so cleanly the owner started sleeping again. Then the owner started asking Paul what time to open. Then what price to charge. Then which customer to refuse. The change arrived like a quiet snowfall, flake by flake until the street was different. Frank Nitti and others liked his steadiness. He didn't argue. He asked one question that cut three ways and let silence answer the rest. Unions, trucks, routes, he sorted the mess into boxes and closed each lid without slamming. He favored three-man meetings, 1 hour, no second drink. He remembered birthdays and weak spots, and he never misused either. In rooms with blinds half closed, his nod carried weight. People left thinking the decision had been theirs. It felt easy, too easy, until a careless brag made its way into the wrong ear. The brag was small, almost nothing, a young driver telling a girl at a tavern how our grocery owned the block. By morning, a rival crew sent feelers. By noon, a patrol car lingered too long outside the loading dock. Paul didn't raise his voice. He cut the driver loose, then quietly gave him work 2 neighborhoods away, where his mouth would do less harm. He trimmed the route by 1 stop, shifted the cash count to a different room, and moved the books from the grocery to a tailor's shop where chalk dust masked everything. The rival crew found a closed door. The cops found nothing but onions and stale bread. He kept his rules in motion, short meetings, clean handoffs, no new faces without 2 old vouchers. He preferred early mornings, when the city was still rubbing its eyes and lies sounded tired. He checked truck tires himself, then asked about a foreman's sick child. It wasn't kindness. It was inventory. Every detail went on a shelf in his head, to be pulled when needed. Money flowed, steady and dull, the way he liked it. But dull money draws bright eyes. A West Coast problem arrived in a silk tie, smiling like a man who'd never heard the word no and didn't plan to. He showed up with studio talk in soft hands, the kind that sign papers other men must carry. He wanted trucks to glide farther than the lake, out where cameras turned lies into pictures and money came back folded in new shapes. He named producers like cousins and said everyone would win. Paul listened, the way he always did, as if measuring a suit. He asked to see contracts, not smiles. He asked who counted the cash and who else touched it before it slept. The answers wandered. The man laughed too easily, the way people do when they are hiding the cost. Paul kept his voice level. He allowed a small test, 1 crate, 1 route, 1 week. The crate arrived light by 10 pounds. The route changed without notice. The week stretched into 12 days. When Paul asked again, the West Coast man said not to worry, the ledgers would catch up. Ledgers do not catch up, Paul said. People do. He pulled back, trimmed exposure, and sent a message west using a vendor's polite complaint. The reply came fast, another smile, this one thinner, with a rumor tucked inside it, names and letters, names that should never be written. Paper was now in the room. And paper travels. Paper travels, and it traveled fast. A clerk out west talked to a friend talked to an agent called a grand jury. Subpoenas began to bloom like winter weeds. Names were set in rooms with flags on the wall. A union man who liked fancy shoes started answering questions with both hands open. Paul shut down phones, then shut down the men who couldn't stop using them. Meetings moved to quieter places, church basements with bingo boards, library corners where a cough could end a sentence. He kept the circle small, then smaller, until even loyal faces felt like risk. Cars began to repeat, same dented fender 2 blocks over, same hat in a diner mirror 3 mornings in a row. He walked past without looking twice and changed his route. Lawyers appeared with soft voices and hard briefcases. The front men grew pale. One of the headline names took a walk alone on a bright day and did not come back. The newspapers chewed on that while the case thickened. Paul kept breathing in the slow way he taught himself long ago, but he could feel the floor shift. Silence had always been enough. Now the walls themselves seemed to be listening, and paper had learned to speak. The knock came at dawn, not loud, just certain. He buttoned his coat while they read the warrant, each button a quiet refusal to hurry. At the station, the coffee was burned and the walls held the smell. He said his name and nothing else. In court, he sat like a man waiting for a late train, eyes on the clock, posture neat. Witnesses spoke as if they were describing weather, steady, unavoidable. The prosecutors loved their maps and lines, the way routes became arrows and arrows became guilt. Paul studied the jurors' shoes instead. He could tell who believed before the verdict, and he was right. When the sentence landed, he nodded once, as if the judge had finally said the thing they were both circling. On the ride to the penitentiary, fields passed like blank pages. He didn't waste time on anger. Anger is noisy and spends itself. He thought about lists who could be trusted to keep the trucks level, who would need a steady hand, who must be removed from any decision at all. He had planned for storms. He had not planned for this new weather, the kind you cannot see, the kind that follows you inside. The gate opened ahead, and for the first time, his schedule belonged to someone else. Prison reduced a man to hours and yards. He chose both. He walked the track at the same time each day, counting cracks like beads. He ate slow. He spoke less. He read ledgers for comfort, the tidy march of numbers that never rolled their eyes or made promises they couldn't keep. Guards tried to draw him out with stories. He nodded and let the stories pass like trains he didn't need to board. He learned which officer disliked paperwork and which inmate owned the radio at noon. He traded only in favors that ended clean. A favor that keeps breathing will choke you later. Letters came on thin paper. Some begged, some bragged, some warned. He answered with 3 sentences at most. Keep the routes steady. No extra hands. No night meetings under bright lights. He reshaped the outfit with inches, not miles, who met whom, which door to use, which cash drawer to retire before it squeaked. He chose lieutenants who were boring to strangers. Boring men live longer. In the quiet, he made a list of what he feared. Not dying. Not loss. Chaos. Chaos kills profit and invites heroes. He planned for order he might never see. When parole whispered his name at last, he did not smile. He checked his cuffs and waited for the next instruction. Parole wanted him small, regular check-ins, a narrow life, a house that looked like a clerk paid the mortgage on time. He obliged in all visible ways. The curtains were plain. The lawn was neat. He ate at home, walked in the evenings, waved to neighbors who never learned his name. But quiet is not the same as absence. He widened the distance between himself and decisions while keeping his fingers on the clock. Messages moved through men who sold tires and soup. A question might travel as a joke told twice. An answer might return as a change in delivery times across 3 zip codes. No signatures. No speeches. Profit over pride, like always. Younger faces handled handshakes, photos, and the risk of being remembered. He recruited for steadiness, not sparks, and cut loose anyone who confused bold with useful. When a plan promised fast money and loud trouble, he let the speaker finish, nodded as if impressed, and then unspooled the plan privately until it lay harmless on the floor. He met in public places where a camera would be bored, laundromats, dentist lobbies, the quiet end of a bowling alley. The machine hummed again, softer, cleaner. Still, he could feel the city changing tempo under him, like music in a room he didn't choose. Age did what police and rivals couldn't, it thinned the edge. The streets spoke a faster language now, new crews and loud cars, new music that shook glass, new rules that pretended not to be rules at all. Paul watched from a distance the way a tailor watches someone wear a fine suit like a costume. The young treated risk like a friend. They posted where they stood, bragged without knowing who listened, forgot that silence used to be bread and shelter. He chose his moments with care. A call placed through a barber. A warning tucked inside a delivery schedule. Fires went out before sirens or headlines, but he could feel the heat rising under the paint. Some mornings he woke with a weight in his bones, the kind that made a staircase feel longer. He adjusted shorter meetings, longer pauses, more writing in pencil that could be erased. He walked to the corner store for milk he didn't need, just to time the block and measure who waved. He asked fewer questions aloud. He wrote more names in his mind and began crossing out a few. He had one fear left, and it was not death. It was leaving behind noise. So he began a final list, careful as ever what to keep, what to cut, who to trust, knowing the last decision is the hardest to deliver. He faded the way he had lived without a scene. Illness shortened the street. He sat by a window in a plain room and watched a city he had once arranged move on time without him. He did not ask for last words. He made sure the right envelopes were sealed, the wrong men were nowhere near levers, and the old routes could run without a signature. When the end came, the paper did not scream. The obituary was modest, almost dull, and that felt correct. The next morning the yell still groaned, trucks still rolled, and a few men met in a quiet booth to discuss balance and risk in the new silence he left behind. What remains is not romance. It is a lesson you can hold in your hand. Power that shouts dies young, power that listens lasts. He built a life on small choices, no second drink, no loose talk, no needless enemies, and those choices bent a city without breaking it. The cost was high, trust measured in inches, warmth traded for control, nights spent counting what could go wrong. If there is meaning, it sits here. Order without mercy is still a kind of storm. Remember that, and sleep carefully. Don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more gangster stories like this one.